Yes, that is right, AJ. We are going to be all right. We've actually got some stuff on AJ that we'll show you a little bit later. But to start, it is West Tigers faithful back again for another week. I remember last year we actually didn't do a first trial review and a second trial preview, so it's good to be doing that. We're leveling up, and a man who continues to level up, the man who travels everywhere. It's Joe McCourt. How are you, mate?
Jet setting, wheeling dealing, son of a gun.
Catching
I'm all
flight,
right.
not feelings.
What's that?
Catching flights, not feelings.
Yeah, something like that. I'm catching lots of feelings, good and bad. West Tigers related and not West Tigers related.
Yeah, there was a lot of very strong feelings at about 5 o'clock on Saturday. We may as well just jump straight in. But before we do that, if you're listening back to this podcast, wherever you are, whatever platform you use, like, subscribe, share, rate, do all those things. It really helps us. All the social medias, you name it, we're on them. We would love for you to be a part of our community. Any questions you've got, please send them through. This is going to be a consistent thing in the sense of recorded episodes. So unless there's emergencies, which there always is in West Tigers land, that's how you can help us as best as possible. So that's pretty much it in terms of what I've got from the outset. I just want to get straight into this review. Mark, you called this the grand final of sorts for us Pathways aficionados. You went on X and exclaimed very, very joyfully that this was the most fun you'd had watching the West Tigers since a little year by the name of 2005. Obviously you've had a little bit of time to sleep on it, ruminate. Maybe you've watched the game back a couple of times.
Couple.
Is that feeling still there?
Look, it's I used hyperbole, like, because I did forget a few key events between then and now that one fateful evening at Leichhardt Oval when we played the Cowboys that I happened to be present at probably trumps. but but aside from that, yeah, like it was awesome for me, and I'm sure for the same reason it was awesome for you, because even though there wasn't anything at stake really, it was just heapings upon heapings of like validation, right? Like just players that we've been like monitoring coming through the grades, just absolutely braining it. And like I think we've talked about the reason why I like to focus on the pathways is for that payoff, right? And it's not like, they did it in real competition, but all you can see that like all of these players that we've been putting our attention on have serious prospects, and some that we maybe underestimate a little bit as well. Guys like the Tatua brothers like had exceptional games, and so it was awesome to see, and to see obviously the big highlight of the year with young Tino. I actually I actually like shed a tear, man. I'm that much of a goofball, but yeah, it was awesome.
And it was great to see a bloke that we've obviously had on the podcast before, really repping WTF
Yeah.
so outwardly with his talents. But in saying that, and the great Tiger Cast said it himself on X, everybody who's been watching the lower grades knows that this is nothing new for Tino. He has as black white gold called it, a very, very sticky right hand. He is a phenomenal footballer, and we'll talk about individual performances in a little bit. But first and foremost, I just want to talk about the team. 46-22 winners, victorious after being down 16 blot at one point. Could have actually been 20 if not for a bunker call that went our way. In February, we managed to complete at 89%. We ran for 250 metres more than the Chooks. Our effective tackle percentage was up by 7% compared to the Chooks, 88% compared to their 81. We kicked for more meters, 688 to 535. We offloaded the ball 16 times compared to their 5. Our average play the ball speed was quicker. So all of these metrics, and yes, it's a trial. Let's get that out of the way early. It's a trial, and it wasn't a first grade trial. There was a couple of guys that are absolutely going to feature this year, but realistically, it wasn't a first grade trial. But just to see the system hold up and to see our young blokes against their young blokes and this apparent fucking, incredible academy that they possess. Mac, I'm sure you probably feel the same. Like, to have seen our young blokes go up against their young blokes, and obviously there was some experience mixed in with what we had, but it was really nice to see that, wasn't it? Just to get one over the Chooks in a lot of ways in terms of seeing their next crop, Flag Cup, a little bit of SG ball, and seeing ours and seeing ours, in a lot of ways after that first 20 or 30 dominate.
Yeah, I mean, it was depth versus depth. I'd say that's a better description than like our young blokes versus their young blokes, because a lot of their depth isn't young blokes, right? So our depth being almost all inexperienced players versus their depth that had like over 500 first grade games, and our depth. I think it's fair to say at this point of the season, the evidence suggests that our depth is better than their depth. And that's amazing because they've got, guys that have played, you know, over 150 first grade games in that list. And they've got guys that are like Junior Tupou, and they've got guys like, uh, Ponga and so on and so forth. Obviously, they did have some young stars. They had the Rodwells and Bassingthwaite and stuff like that. I think that the difference between the two sides proved to be the experience of our seven versus the inexperience of theirs, genuinely, which is amazing because Jock Madden has never really had a game that good in any kind of like heated contest before. And we did see earlier in the week, last week, Alex Twal singled him out. And I know some of the guys that we were talking to were like, geez, it must be bad signs if Alex Twal saying Jock Madden's been the biggest difference maker on the training paddock during the off season. But you know, maybe Jock Madden's just turned a page in his career. He looks fit. He looks confident. And I know that you're going to talk about whether or not maybe Jock Madden might actually end up coming out of the clouds and usurping that seven role.
Yeah, we will. I think first and foremost, it's best that we talk about the system before we start talking about individual players. But you're absolutely right on Jock. He was excellent, and in a lot of ways faultless. Let's start with that first sort of 2025. Hugo Savala sort of had the ball on strings there for a lot of it, sort of creating a fair bit. But at the same time, there was a lot of not necessarily negatives, but learnings for the Tigers there in a lot of ways. That first try, from my perspective, it was coming, but it mainly came from that man Jock Madden. He jammed a little bit and made a decision, and sort of double teamed on Savala, left his man free, put Patrick Herbert in no man's land, and sure enough, Savala took the right option. The second one, the scrum play, that was just really good execution, and they made a young and inexperienced centre bite. And then that Uelu try, from my perspective, it was just more Phoenix got an A, missing his assignment there at the ruck, where he probably had a look and went, okay, if I can push everybody one left, then we can be ready for the shot, when he should have just been mindful, get his halfback out of the way, because realistically, no halfback was ever going to stop Uelu that close to the line. So from my perspective, they're learnings. Even the no try to Pauga off Haddard's drop, that is evidence there for a young bloke like Jack that this ball, no matter how deep you stand, can be pinged anywhere, and you need to be ready for it. And that's something that he's going to learn from. Look, I felt like Mac, and you can attest to this as well. Obviously, they had the running of the game for a little bit, but there were opportunities that we could have taken. And like Javon threw the ball, I think it was Javon or Jock that threw the ball at he and Marcy's ankles. He was open and ready to score at that point. Tristan Hope had a couple of clunky moments. There was a 50-50 call that the referee adjudged for him to have knocked on. So it wasn't that bad, but in saying that, there was, I'm sure that Benji would have sort of, rolled back the tape and said, okay, all right, this is what we're going to learn. We're going to get this out of your systems now. And this is why trials are so important.
Yeah, I think that you summarized it well. It didn't look to me like we were being dominated in the contest either. Like the unfortunately, the Roosters got a bit of momentum early. At one point, I think they had 7 from 7 completions, and we had 2 from 3 completions. And at that time, I think it was 16-0. So that was kind of, it kind of put us in a situation where it could have really got out of control. But my observation at that point was like none of our players had put their heads down yet. They were still in the contest. They were firing. The Roosters executed really well in a couple of really key moments. As you say, there was a couple of unfortunate decisions. Yes, I agree. Godinay kind of just found himself behind the play of the ball instead of like actually, manning up on anybody really on that play where Owelu scored. And then Attard dropping the ball obviously didn't concede the try, but like I think almost any fullback would have been caught in a very similar situation there. And he made a decision to attack the ball, which is positive football, and actually caught the ball. He actually just ended up rolling over and just accidentally like bumping it out of his grasp. So, I wasn't taking much negatives away from the contest really at that point at all. Like we were all in the Discord chatting away, watching the game, and the doomsayers were out in force. But like I was there just being like, it's not that bad. Like the guys are putting in. We were getting a bit dominated in the forwards as you would expect, with the way the two packs lined up. But we hadn't had any real chances up until that point. The Roosters had all of the good chances up until that point, except for the Marcy pass, as you called. That was literally the only one. And with to your point, the system produced a try on that play. It was just execution that let us down. So, and then once we actually got ourselves into any kind of position to actually fire a shot back, away we went. And then our execution was pretty much flawless for the rest of the game. And the Roosters were the side that couldn't keep up with what we were doing. The Roosters' execution fell away. Their players started looking tired. Their players started looking like that they were feeling the pressure, and they were never able to recover. I think at one point we ended up scoring 40. It was 42 unanswered points, wasn't it?
No, because Egan Butcher got that try where that really looked like an obstruction. But yes, that was the only one of note. But let's talk about the attack there, because I thought that they executed beautifully, and it was really clear that there was a solid direction, and that's what Jock brings, right? And that's what a good on-ball 7 brings. But it's becoming increasingly clear, and we'll talk about the Jock Madden dilemma in a little bit, but Benji really wants an on-ball 7 that does all the fundamentals really well. So first of all, getting the boys to their points. So that first try that we scored, you saw a bit of Jock, Javon, and even Heath Mason through the middle, sort of getting the side around. They sort of moved to the left. There was a bit of second phase off Tony Sukkar. They didn't panic. They laid one to the right, and then they took that shot to the left where they went sort of block for block, and then Allard swept to the left for the first time in ages, and then just gave Hiamasi the ball, which was beautiful. But it was such strong execution from all of them, particularly Jock and then Jack Allard, just to give the ball to Hiamasi to know that he was going to get the job done, even though it was 2-on-2. But the point is with all of this is that all of this can be easily repeated in grade,
Mm.
and they expect it to happen at a higher click. The Jared Hayward try was off some great second phase. Well done to Charlie Murray for absorbing the contact and offloading late. It gave Jared the opportunity, but the third and fourth try, so Hiamasi's second and third, they were exceptional. So like the backline shifts in our 20 a few times looked beautiful. The two pass, then the block, that was gorgeous. There was a couple other variations where you'd have a lead runner, and I think it was Lachlan Broadelow at left back row that was doing that, and that looked really nice too. I think with about 5 minutes to go, Heath Mason ran that one. He was playing 6 or centre or something. He dropped the ball, but that looked really nice. But what you saw was that the fundamentals for football or halfback play is what freed it up. Jock played square and direct. He threw really nice bullet passes. We were stood back nice and deep. He varied his tempo a little bit. He shifted through the gears. And what that allowed was that it created time and space on the outside. And that is, I think that is what Benji Marshall has asked for with this system for so long. And now we're finally seeing it executed. And I know it's not first grade and I know it's a trial, but it actually gives me confidence seeing those blokes, Andrews, Madden, Addard, Mason, those sorts of guys calling the shots and getting them to these points. And, and it's coming off this early in the season.
Yeah, I think the takeaway is that if you think about all of the those moments where something happened that then directly led to a try. You mentioned the offload from Murray. You mentioned, Jock biting into the line and stuff like that. Most of them, you could easily see the exact same thing being replicated by the first grade side. Because you look at a guy like Terrell May, those offloads, like the one that led to the Tavana try that Broadalow got away. Those are things that Terrell May was doing all year last year, but we weren't able to execute off the back of it. You look at like how much of the dominance was coming from our left center position. We've got Taylor May at left center, so he'll be able to capitalize on the opportunities that get created. The question I have is Adam Dewey able to do exactly what Jock Madden did in that system? Everybody else you can easily see would just fold straight into it. Buller can do everything that Brooks and everything that Attard did. And that was key. Obviously, Appy can do everything Hayward did. So I do see like that system was the depth players doing what the first grade players are good at. Like that's what I took away from it. But yeah, I was really, really impressed with honestly how clinical they were for like inexperienced players to be able to actually execute the system so well. Also gives me confidence that if we need to call on depth this year, we're not gonna struggle. Like it looks like we've got depth so far down the roster. Like the train and trialists look like that they could perform. I mentioned to keep an eye on Lachlan Broadalow last week, and I thought he was fantastic. Obviously had two great touches in the lead up to that Tavana try. Super busy, played really positively. Yeah, just a really really positive, really hope inspiring performance.
Oh, he was excellent. It's like his late footwork at the line. You can tell that he's lost a bit of that puppy fat. The way that he sort of bounced
Mm,
around off his ankles. It was really nice. But obviously, Hiyamasi Makasini scores 3 tries. Everybody's talking
mm,
about it. Everybody's talking about Falatino Tavana. But I was more impressed with the work rate of those blokes in the sense of, they would. Hiyamasi was the play to hit up out of yardage every single time he was on the field. Didn't matter where it
yep,
was. I thought he looked phenomenal. And we'll get to the Penrith game in a little bit, but the yardage work of those blokes, now I would like them to stand a little bit wider, although it may be intentional and trying to spot up markers. But Luke Lowley, he looked a class above in that department. Hiyamasi loves rolling up the sleeves. And Tavana, who is a guy that we sort of said, he needs to work on those things. He has everything else. It's not the fundamentals. I was really impressed by the way that he rolled up his sleeves. I thought he
agreed.
really worked there nicely.
Yep, agreed. I think Marcy played when he played at left center. I saw he's not far off what Taylor May can do for us in attack. When he played at left wing, he did the skeleton role perfectly well. It was yeah. So Marcy is like as a first drop there gives us so much depth on that left side. And then also Kit, I think like is worth mentioning. Kit, like he played that volley role. You know what I mean? Like really, really well. Like that's exactly. It's kind of remarkable. Like it's honestly, I know it's so early in the season, but it looks like they've had a great off season. At least the young guys. So good job to the coaching team for getting those guys ready. And the I guess the thing we probably should be most confident in is looks like New South Wales Cup might be in for a good season. I think Heath Mason. It was when Heath Mason came on the field that the momentum changed. Like when he came on the field and started playing that super sub role that you and plenty of others have talked about being his long term future in the game. Uh, I thought he didn't do anything amazing, but like he just brought he brought enough extra pressure that it started to take the pressure off of the rest of the side to execute off of that like pivot, off of that like role that only he could play. Took the hit up, which put the team in a situation where the next play was a little bit more free. Didn't really, do anything like 2 outstanding, no line breaks or like no try assists or anything like that. But I liked the work. I thought it was kind of a good sign in the right direction for him as well.
I agree, and that brings me to my next point, where you're seeing this very Sheens influenced interplay amongst our middle forwards. These nice little tip-ons, these really clever little shapes that they're putting together, and I think that they're again, like we talk about first grade translation, I think that that can come. You can
Mm,
see Alex Twal having the ball at first receiver, and then giving it to Terrell May to shovel on the ball there, and so
yep,
forth. Some
exactly.
of the work by some of those blokes was sensational, and again, like Mason, as you say, he almost acted as a third pivot in the center there, the way that he was sort of turning blokes under, and that makes me think that there's more of an evolution to come, and it's probably, maybe it does come to a crossroads and Adam Dewey does end up there at 13, but it was
Yep.
a really nice evolution to see, and obviously the main one where it paid off was the kid try, right? Where Christian Torpau-Morse, who is very skillful, I didn't realize he was that skillful, passed the ball to Siatame Havea Jr., who just had beautiful hands, catch, pass, onto Kit, off he goes. But Siatame did that a few times with Kit, where he showed the bravery as a pretty undersized middle, to sort of take that shot to allow the bloke outside him to make those meters, and sure enough, they did. So, look, other guys that are probably worth shouting out, and I'll let you sort of jump in as well, but Javon Andrews, I just think he picked his moments. He didn't overplay his hand. As I said, I think that this system begs for an on-ball seven, so therefore it's almost similar to what we've hoped for with Luai in terms of how we line up and how we played footy. He just got the ball when he needed it. He got those good ball touches when they were required, and off he went. I thought Solomon Salkuru, the work that he did to unlock Tino was really nice. I mean, he made some really strong carries, and yeah, I mean, look, again, he's another one similar to Lockie Bordello, where I was talking about not necessarily last chance saloon, but put up or shut up. And he did. I thought he was excellent. Max Tatua had some beautiful touches. And the guy I mentioned before, Siatame Ave Jr., just if you go back and watch a game, just watch him. Just track him defensively. He's so good to watch. His technique's impeccable. And there were some big boys in that Roosters side. Della Silva, he's not small. Taylor Lazalu's not small. Siatame was cutting those blokes down. Luke Jack similar. So yeah, very, very impressive from our young blokes. Who else caught your eye, mate?
Yeah, man, I'm not taking anything away from anybody. Like, I'm just looking back through the team list, and I mean, I could single out a couple of players that maybe didn't, like, tear the roof off, but I just won't, because it's just unnecessarily negative. Like, but if you go even all the way down, like somebody like much, much maligned in the fan base in Will Craig, right? Outside of the worst goal kick in the history of mankind, he was pretty good. Like, he made a really like good run off of a really good pass from Mitch Tautua, off of some loose ball. He like bumped off tackles. I think he ended up with like six tackle breaks. For somebody who's in our top 30 that a lot of people were just sort of sighing about, obviously to be able to do the things that Will can do on the field, and then just lose concentration when kicking a goal the first time he's ever kicked a goal on TV. There's obviously something going wrong up here for Will. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just all a bit much for him at this point in time. He's just a little bit too early, but I mean, I still wouldn't write the kid off fully, to be honest. Like, stranger things. Thought Joe Sessi Lanyon, really showed the all of the things that we've been talking about, like that Havili clone style. He was so hard to pull down when he was like taking hit ups up the center of the field. There's been times where he's done that and pulled out of tackles and ended up running away and scoring tries in the lower grades. It looks like all of the stuff that we see these guys doing in the lower grades is translating already. Like, it's translated to this next step up, which is a hybrid NRL New South Wales Cup level side. They were able to do all of the same things. Logan Brooks was breaking tackles. He scored his customary try. It's all of them performed well. I even think, I mean, I could honestly just wax lyrical about all of them. Like, I think I'll take a brief mention of both Murray and Luke Jack. They I don't see either of them being too far off of an Alex Seafarth level performer, which puts them into the frame. I think Iverson Matai got limited minutes in the second half, but he didn't look out of his depth at that level either. And obviously Jared Hayward, oh my god, we like we could do 3 episodes to review these players, but Jared Hayward looks like the man, doesn't he? Like, to be able to do what he was able to do, and mostly just through crafty like distribution, looking one way, passing back the other, silky hands on time all the time, and then to be able to like take that offload and that hard left foot step. Really, really good. I think the only thing I would say is, like, I'm not sure about the defense. Like, I didn't see any too much evidence that, like, we've got, like, defensive standouts in this list of players, but I digress.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Obviously, Sione is a first grader already, so him jolting the ball free of Egan, it was great to watch, but it wasn't anything crazy.
Mm.
We'll talk Patrick Herbert properly in a moment, but there was a good shot that he put on Bassingthwaite, but he kind of just bounced out of the tackle, no dramas. But what you said about Haywood, I just want to echo that and actually echo another thing that you said a little bit earlier in the sense of you can tell that they built the system a little bit around, player archetypes in the sense of, Buller can do what Ad Brooks do and those sorts of things. Jamin Haywood looks like Uppy out there. Now, he doesn't have the same level of deception and he doesn't have the same, identification of the ruck, and he's a little bit different in that sense, but the body feints and the way that he, sort of, you know, gets markers in two minds and those sorts of things, that kid, he's learning, like, very clearly. He's taking these cues off Uppy and he's applying them into his own game, and again, that try that he and Mussy scored, which was his hat trick when he's playing on the wing and that double pump that Andrews throws, that starts at the ruck. That is, and that's where all of these try scoring plays in good ball territory start. They start with engaging that middle corridor and ensuring that they are occupied by those there. And Jared was doing that. So, look, I actually, the whole 6-man bench thing and Latu Fainu's not back till they reckon at least round 4. I'd have Jared there. I'm the one out of us two that's typically pretty reluctant to blood juniors so quickly, but with the weight he's put on and how, like, he's such a competitor, and again, his work around the ruck, I thought he was excellent. He didn't miss a tackle. He did not miss a tackle. Like,
Yeah, there's team composition now becomes the question because, like, obviously we know Appy can't play 80. When Arpy's not on the field, do you want another Arpy or do you want Tristan Hope, who brings a completely different style of nine? I know Tristan Hope had a couple of bad moments, but Tristan Hope was also like leading the energy. He was probably the one primarily responsible for keeping our heads above the waterline. Even though they scored that try where the player slipped over and then scored. It was Tristan Hope that was putting the pressure on him that made him slip over, coming all the way across from the center of the field. Like that level of effort. Do you want Hope there or do you want Hayward there or do you want them both there so that you can, sub Appy for Hayward if we're still got our backs up and we need another person to come on and continue to like put the pressure on from an attack perspective, or do you, in case you need to bring on Hope to kind of just solidify things and just simplify. It's great problem to have. I think if Hayward does end up getting picked first, though, we're getting to that pointy end of the draft pick question of like which one of our boys is going to end up in first grade first, aren't we? It's touch and go because I've been backing in Godinay to be first up, but Hayward's put his hand up. I still wouldn't count out some of the other guys in that list either. Obviously, Logan. I think probably come into this episode expecting me to talk about Logan Brooks nonstop because I'm such a fan. And I could. He was awesome. I looked at that game and I was like, Logan and Jack aren't that far apart. Jack Attard's obviously got the jump on him because he's now named this weekend as well, and Logan's not. But I didn't think Logan put a foot wrong in that game. It was, him offloading, real nice offload around the corner. I think it was to Kit, maybe, that led to one of our tries there off of it. I think Josesi offloaded to Logan, maybe. I don't know. I don't remember. But obviously, and also scored a great try. So I don't know. Maybe we need to have a quick conversation about who we think is going to be the first one of our draft picks to get selected.
I think that odds have slashed on Jared Haywood. I think that he's very, very likely to make his debut this year. I'd put him ahead of Phoenix. Look, the way that we set up yesterday on Saturday was very left side dominant. Again, you had the seven sweeping around both sides. They parked Jack Addard mostly, or the fullback in some places, Brooks, on that right hand side and sort of had a flat four. So that way, if the fullback saw something, they could overcall it and sort of play footy that way. Phoenix was okay. I don't think he really put a foot wrong apart from that Uelu try, but obviously, again, just the impact that Jared Haywood had, I thought it was off the charts. Plus, also, it's in terms of where Phoenix really sits in the depth chart. We won't know until round two, like especially with Ethan Rogers out.
Just quickly, let's just do a quick stock take on that 2025 draft we did. So, of the players that we drafted in 2025 that played on the weekend, and I assume that there'll be nobody that we drafted that wasn't named on the weekend that's going to get the jump on any of them. We have Phoenix, Christian Tapau-Moores, Jared Hayward, Mitch Tautua, and Logan Brooks. I find it. I mean, Hayward does seem like the most likely. I'm a little bit. I'm a little bit once bitten, twice shy with our track record of bringing young hookers into first grade too soon. Hey, like if you look at what ended up happening to Simpkin and that now Talon De Silva, it seems like it might knock him about on the confidence level a little bit too much. I know you're going to talk about Herbert getting upgraded, but I know you agreed with my appraisal that like I thought Mitch Tautua outplayed him.
You
And
mean Max?
yes, sorry, Max Tautua, the center. I thought
Yep.
he outplayed him. I thought that I see Max Tautua as a first grader now. I look at him and I go, there's nothing about him that makes me think he's anything but a first grade right center. And a right center is actually not easy to come by. I know there was rumors that we were in the market looking for exactly that. And he had a great game. Like he ended up with a ton of tackle breaks and made some great runs down the right hand side. And he's a great try scorer. He's not a ball hog either. And has that extra, I guess, ability to potentially push one in if need be. He's not a small body at all, and he's not young either. I think he's turning 22 this year, so he's like right on the right age as well. And then obviously you've also got Christian Tapau-Moores, who I wouldn't write off either, because obviously the team rate him, and props get called up quite regularly out of the blue. We saw Jordan Miller get a game a couple of years ago when we weren't necessarily expecting it, and Tim Johansson, he had strung a couple of really good games together in New South Wales Cup. Suddenly gets a first grade berth because you've got to run 4 to 5 middles every week. And now with the 6-man bench, maybe that's 6. So how far down the depth charts Christian Tapau-Moores when it comes to middles? A couple of injuries hit and suddenly he's in the frame. But I suppose you probably are right. Like all things being equal, first grade doesn't get injury ravaged, and it just becomes a matter of like picking the player who just demands attention and can provide the most value. It's probably Jared.
Yeah, I tend to be with you. On Moores really quickly. I think that, he probably he would have wanted his first stint back. I think that Benji clearly by benching Charlie Murray almost threw down the gauntlet to Christian and said, this is your time. Let's see it. Did a lot of cleanup work, sort of being the third man in on tackles or sort of sliding down and wrapping legs and so forth. I think it was just the speed of the game initially he just wasn't ready for, but that second stint, I thought he really showed what he's about, and that shows really good character. That he didn't drop his bundle, he didn't go into his shell, and he pressed on. So, all eyes are on this New South Wales Cup side. It's very, very exciting to watch, and there's so many good prospects and genuine bolters. We're just going to have to see what happens. But
Before we move on,
go.
let's just do. I know it's going to be real hard. I'm going to put you on the spot. Who's your 3-2-1?
Okay. Jock 3, Charlie Murray 2, Jared Haywood 1.
Mm. Yeah, I agree. Jock was man of the match. I think. Did you say Charlie too?
Yeah, I did.
mm, I think I agree with you. 3-2-1. Yeah, I think you nailed it. if I wanted to be a contrarian, I might even throw Tino in with the one.
I like that.
Obviously he had the big moment, but like outside of that, he was solid as a rock. If I think if Luke Lalali'i played more minutes, I think maybe maybe Luke could be in the 3-2-1 because he ended up with 140 meters and he really only played a half. Man, that
Yeah.
that kid that kid gets through work, dude. I think I remember seeing a game. I think I've mentioned this a few times now. I've seen games in the lower grades where he would have topped 300 meters. Obviously, they don't track it that much in the lower grades, but he is just tireless on the field. So congratulations to the Perth Bears.
With you there, mate. It hurts to lose him. I don't know whether or not his brother's going to stay around. Benji shouted him out the other day, but yeah, you're right. He just gets through so much work, and he was genuinely someone who I thought might have been a shout for that solitary point. But no, I went straight off the dome. I hadn't had any time to think about it, as you said, and that's what I came up with. We haven't really spoken about him because it is a news segment in a sense. Patrick Herbert made his return to NRL affiliated football on the weekend. And as it were, a few days later, we find out that he's been rewarded with a full-time contract, 2-year deal, which I thought was particularly interesting, and we'll talk about it. He will now be at the club until the end of 2027 in some full-time capacity. Development top 30 they haven't mentioned. That might be, to do with some creative accounting. All eyes on the NRL signings tracker nonetheless. But obviously, Patrick's been honestly, he's been in a lot of like the social media materials and stuff, which I found pretty interesting. And he was named at right center over Max Tautua, which I kind of expected, but we certainly thought that Max outplayed him the other day. It's not to say that he didn't have some bad moments or some good moments. I just thought he was. I'm going to say it. I thought he was largely ineffective. Obviously, first game, as you have said, a temporary expectation. And he'll probably grow back into it in terms of speed and fitness and sort of playing football again. But I don't know about this one. What do you think?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to talk about for sure because he's such an interesting story. Like he's had so much time out of the game, which is you know, kind of offsets his age, I guess, like 29, but he's not your normal 29 in the sense that he hasn't had the mileage. So his body's probably more 26, 27. There I go again with 6'7", man. I just can't help myself. But the I didn't think he was that bad. Like I think, he got cut down one time where I feel like if he had passed to Tino, Tino probably would have had two highlight reel tries. Maybe Patrick just doesn't know Tino as well as Sol. Like Patrick could have just drew the man and unlocked Tino, and maybe Paddy just was it's not quite enough space in the heat of the moment and just decided to tuck it and just got belted instead. But that then also led to the Marcy try. Like that was that exact same play. So maybe he was supposed to do that, or maybe he was supposed to get the quick play of the ball and it was actually like planned ahead. I'm not too bothered by it aside from like what it means for Tino Tavana and Mitch Tautua because like Tino's also on a training trial. Tino's a wing fullback center, like he's a utility outside back. And Tino can play both sides of the field. Like I think he's played mostly on the right in the lower grades. Obviously, scored that amazing try on the weekend on the left. So Tino's very flexible, and with that like freakish finishing, like you gotta give him. You know what I mean? Like you've gotta lock this kid down. Like there's nobody aside from Mark Nwangani who would have scored that try. Like that's just bananas. And obviously, yeah, Mitch too. So, 2 years, maybe the question mark. Like maybe I might have preferred to just upgrade him for the season and then like give him like, maybe a club option for 2027, just so we could potentially, pivot off of him and onto Tino or Mitch, depending on how they perform for the rest of the season. But now that you've like given the Bird contract to Herbert for 2 seasons, you think about like how that's gonna what that's going to encourage the agents of Tautua and Tino to do. They're going to be now active in the market looking for a contract for 2027. Not to say the club can't re-sign them, because I know they've got some other players off contract too. So it's not out of the equation. And I think that the main reason that Patrick Herbert's been locked down is because of the question marks we have at right center. Stafford Toa's the right center, and he's probably the biggest question mark in the starting 13 from like a health perspective, and from even thinking about like the rumors around Stafford not re-signing and stuff like that. Like if Stafford's never really felt super locked in to that role.
Mm.
Um, so they've probably gone hedge a bit. Like we kind of just need a warm body there at right center that we can call on, that's gonna do a job, that's got an early experience, that knows how to prepare for game day, knows what it feels like to play NRL. Um, and they probably just felt like they needed that experience. I don't. I don't worry about the age. That's the thing with Patrick. I don't worry about the age. I just don't know if I don't know if he's going to be so effective that, like, if need be, if we have to play him for almost the whole season at right center, what that's going to mean for the performance of the side. Um, would you still be in the market for a right center? I guess is a good question. Like, would you be still looking for like another option? I saw some names thrown up like Avarillo and stuff like that. What do you think?
I absolutely think you do. I think purely playing devil's advocate, let's imagine that Patrick is like a Will Craig replacement for 2027, right? You can wear it a little bit more, and you hope that Tino is a guy that becomes the Luke Lalii replacement on the depth chart, and Max
Yep.
Tautua gets a development contract, of which I think we have at least 2 spots left within, right? That's what I would like to see. But yes, I would absolutely go shopping. Now, in terms of the guys that, we might be able to get effective immediately, the dream is a Jesse Arthurs, right? Who the Gold Coast Titans are inquiring about, or a Jake Averillo, as you said. But these are clubs that are pretty stubborn and that are on a contracts, and they're not like us. Blokes go early, mate. Genuinely, and you're going to like this. I think the one that I would like to see us go and target is Wilson DeCourcy at Newcastle. I would like to see us go after him, throw some good money at him, and basically say to him, you're in a 2-horse race with Stafford Tower for the right centre job in 2027, and lay it out for him. You know, entice him to come back to Sydney, entice him to come and have a crack. And he's come from the Penrith system. Come back and work with these blokes to push us towards a premiership. That's where I'd be shopping. That's where I'd be fishing. We talk about Monson Hopewadi, but he's a long way away. Like realistically, Herbert as depth is serviceable, providing that you've got a guy between him and Stafford. I find, and that's where I'd go. I would. Other guys that are on that list, realistically, of outside backs that I'd look into. I don't think there's heaps. For reference, Arthurs and Avarillo we spoke about. I'd look into Avarillo absolutely, but would he entertain it? Probably not, because he'd want to be guaranteed a starting gig. Rocco Berry's always injured. Braden Burns is not getting any younger, and he's transferred to the wing. Dane Gagai will retire pretty soon. Moala Graham Torfa, reserve grader. Deloise Hoyt, a reserve grader. Tom Jenkins, more a winger. Richard Penasini and Will Penasini, they're going to stay at para. I like Brian Puniu, I think it is, from the Dolphins. I think he's all right. But yeah, I'd be shopping. I'd be throwing some good coin at the Corsi. That would be my pick.
I do like DeCourcy a lot. I think a lot of people will be like scratching their heads at the suggestion that we should just go after another like depth player, considering we have like so many options in our own pathways there. The aforementioned names, Tautua and Tino. But I do think Tino definitely profiles more as a winger in first grade, and Pinch maybe playing fullback, but like he's probably not got the body for center. Wilson DeCourcy, he's a sort of like young player who, you kind of can't see not being a good first grader. He's just too good. He's a sort of player that I think a lot of clubs will be going after. He'll debut this year, I'm pretty sure. And I think he'll kind of have that like McLean kind of trajectory where, he'll come into grade and he'll do good things here or there in the first season, and in the second year he'll just explode and it'll just be easy for him. He's the same Australian schoolboys crop as Lachlan Galvin and Heath Mason. So he's a good age. I'm actually surprised that he hasn't played more first grade already, to be honest, especially at the club that took him. Like he did get poached, right? Like he got poached as a depth player by Newcastle from Penrith. So he, yeah, it's if we signed him, I think it'd leave a few people scratching their heads, but you and me would not be among those. That's for sure. So you're right. I do like it. I think you make good points, like in the sense that if we know Luke's going, so we know we need to turn that spot over. Will Craig's very unlikely to be here in 2027 unless he's just relegated back to a train and trial deal and decides to stick around for that reason because he has no other options. Just probable. That's not out of the question, but he ain't going to be in the top 30 come 2027. That's for dang sure. Solomon Asau is a very left-sided player. Even though he can play center and he's got utility value, he's not an out and out right center. Wilson DeCourcy is a center, a star center. Imagine a future center pairing of here, Marcy Marcassini on the left, Wilson DeCourcy on the right. Geez, you're looking at something pretty formidable there, aren't you?
I hear
Good
you.
call.
Yeah, that would be my pick. But obviously, the question around Newcastle is obviously will Gags go around again? They've got guys like Kyle McCarthy, Fletcher Hunt, those sorts of guys, even Fletcher Sharp, they're sort of ahead of him. So in a very, very similar manner to what we did around Jack Ardard, even though a guy like Max Tautu was there or thereabouts, you've got Herbert on the roster, that's where I'll be going. There's so much upside there and so much there to like, but we'll just have to see. Anyway, let's hop out of recruitment conversations and preview this match because we do have a game that is just over 24 hours away from the time of recording. We are playing the Penrith Panthers. Our side is as follows. Fullback, Jareen Buller. The wingers, Hiamasi Makasini and Sania Taruva. I assume that Taruva will be right, Hiamasi on the left. The centers, Taylor May and Stafford Tower, left and right respectively. The 5'8" and captain, Jerome Luai, Adam Dewey at halfback to start the year. The front row, Bunty Arfoa, upper side, Coruscant and Fanua Bole. The back row, Samuela Fainu, Kai Pearce-Paul and Alex Twal. Jerseys 14 to 17 are Jock Madden, our man of the match from last week, Jack Addard, Alex Seafarth and Sione Fainu. And then jerseys 18 to 28 are as reads, Patrick Herbert, Tony Sukar, Kit Laulii, Tristan Hope, Heath Mason, Luke Laulii, Jared Haywood, Maverick Geyer, Falatino Tavana, Charlie Murray, and Javon Andrews. So in terms of the guys that have dropped out of the squad, Christian Torpau-Moores, Siatame Have Jr. and Phoenix Godney all gone back to SG Ball. Iverson Maddai, Joseph Lenyon, Lachlan Broadalow, Logan Deninja, Luke Jack, the Tautua twins, Sola Sakura and Will Craig will obviously go to that cup trial, you would assume. So in terms of those train and trial guys that have been kept on, I just want to reiterate who they are. Jack Addard, Patrick Herbert technically, even though he's a top 30 guy now, Jared Haywood, Falatino Tavana, and then everybody else is either on top 30 or development deals and so forth. I apologise if I've got any of those wrong. Mate, very deep squad, and it ties in with the fact that Benji on a Coaching Insider, if you haven't watched it, go and have a look, said that, very, very high workload for the boys at the moment. I would assume that we see this first grade side for 30, 35 minutes and they just start pulling them off. Is that pulling them off? Yeah.
Who's they? You?
Right, well, with the rules around these blue shirts, they're no longer going to be on the field, so they may as well be doing something on the sidelines. But I would anticipate that they rotate the squad pretty heavily around that 30 to 35 minute mark.
And Penrith, I'll read their team list out. This is like if last week was not a genuine contest, genuine trial, this one bloody well is. Dylan Edwards, Thomas Jenkins, Isaac Tungo, Paul Alamotti, Ryan To'o, Blaze Talangi, Nathan Cleary, Moses Leota, Mitch Kenny, Lindsay Smith, Isaiah Papali'i, Kalani going straight over from the Warriors, going straight into the back row. Isaiah Yeo, Freddie Lussick, Billy Phillips, Zachary Clark. Zachary Clark gets a bench spot. He played really well in their trial last week, ex-Tiger. Luron Patia, Jackson Edgar, who played really well for them as well last week. Patrick Moy, Tom Ale, Jesse McLean, Sione Finua, Kurt Falls, Keon Skips, who was awesome for them, Jaira Lydiard, Billy Scott, and Harry Armstrong. So there's some missing names there. Once you get out of the top 13, it's a very young list of players beyond that. But in that top 13, very formidable side, very formidable middles. Obviously, they've got Nathan Cleary there. They've got their starting halves. They've got their starting fullback. They've got their starting nines. They've got their whole spine. They've got their strike winger in tow. And they've got the West Tigers killer Thomas Jenkins there on the wing too. Shut him down, win the game. That's my tip. Very exciting to watch this game. I think the only glaring part where the Panthers really have the wood on us vividly is in the front row. Obviously, they've got Moses Leota and Lindsay Smith there in the front row, and we're missing Terrell May. But outside of that, we've named a really strong side that lines up against them really well man to man. First time we'll get to see Kai Pierce Paul, be very exciting. Here, Marcy Marcassini getting to actually like play because I think Skelton must have a niggle to be not named entirely. So Marcy's going to be lining up with the first graders. I think he'll be lining up directly on Toto. Don't quote me on that. So that'll be a hell of a contest. Toto's not gonna. He'll take it upon himself to like try to give the young man a bath. And Marcy's got this newfound aggression too. So that looms as a really nice individual contest to watch for a few minutes. I kind of wouldn't be surprised if we see a pretty similar kind of game narrative, like because I feel like we've got the better side from like 14 to 28 than they do. I wouldn't be surprised if like once the subs start coming on, we start pulling away. I think what I said last week was that as long as we're sort of close-ish, once that happens, that you can see a contest start to shape up. Wasn't quite like that. Like they skipped away a little bit, and then we managed to like actually just flog them. Like so, that was kind of a little bit different. But yeah, really exciting. I think not really too many surprises, to be honest. I think Tino getting a spot here is a really good reward for a great game. Mav Geyer is going to be one to watch. Obviously, his first game for the club as well. There, I was going to mention as well, like Jack Attard, like he's the sort of player who I could easily see. Like Nick Meaney was a fullback as a young fella, ended up like becoming a center and a really, really good one. I wouldn't be afraid of putting Jack Attard on a wing or a center, like in first grade, if need be. I wouldn't mind seeing some minutes from him there. Yeah, I think we're in the fight here. I'm pretty confident. What about you?
I'm probably similar to you in the sense of the glaring weakness is the front row, but it's a really nice test. I'm first of all, really, I'm delighted that Penrith have trotted out what is effectively a full strength side now. There's no Casey McLean, there's no Liam Martin missing. Those sorts of guys aren't there at the moment, but it's pretty much all we could ask for. We're missing a few guys too, obviously, but you know, in terms of their key players and, who is important for their attacking shapes, they're there. So that's great for us. In terms of what you're looking for, I think that in terms of, the game plan will probably be similar. I don't think I anticipate to see us be really flamboyant with the footy, but we get your points, swing both ways, with the footy and just kick well and obviously it's just defensive aptitude. With Benji saying that, they've been flogged this week, they'll obviously be managing loads again, probably, 15, 20 minutes for these middle forwards that are starting. But yeah, I'm really curious and excited, to be quite
What
frank. Obviously it's a different time. In terms of where we're at, in terms of our conditioning compared to Penrith, because we don't play football for another 2 or 3 weeks properly. But yeah, it's super, super exciting.
do you read much into things like Jock Madden and Jack Attard having the 14 and the 15 jersey?
Madden a little bit. I think Jock will make the 6-man bench, but Jack at jersey 15, I'm not too sure. First of all, he's ineligible for first grade for the first 10 rounds because he's actually a trainer trialist. He's not actually on a development contract unless they do some sort of jostling with, sort of promoting a Bunty or a Javon. I mean, a little bit. I would anticipate the Jock will be there come round 2, given Latu's injury woes. But no, I don't read into it heaps. But
And thoughts on Bunty Afoa being named starting prop?
seems to be a lot of excitement about him, and I'm really curious to see because let's be real. Let's be realistic. Like he's he finished the year last year playing reserve grade for the Warriors, and I know that they won the comp, but obviously Bunty has promised a lot for a really long time, but really fell by the wayside these past couple of years and struggled to play regular first grade in what I think is probably the best forward pack in the comp, right?
Isn't it
Um,
interesting that like if you look at Penrith, like they've got Ale Kalani going, and they even brought over Crosby. They basically just poached the entire Warriors New South Wales Cup forward pack, and
yeah,
then
they,
we took the other one. The
I,
Warriors New South Wales Cup forward pack got absolutely poached out of the eyeballs, as well they should have. They were utterly dominant last year. They were the, the New South Wales Cup Warriors last year would have probably put the wood on us if they played us as far as pack for pack, like first grade versus their New South Wales Cup side. They had Kalis Faitoa Lofa or whatever his fucking name is as well, and he's an absolute machine as well. Little bit of a contest there between Bunty and his ex teammates.
yeah, definitely. Look, on Bunty, I'm optimistic. I love the story that Gary Watson told on Claws Out. That basically, Bunty said, "I read your book, and when you needed it, when you needed a last minute, you know, call out to play football, you called Wayne Bennett, and you asked him to give you a chance. I'm calling you to do the same." And he shed 17 kilos, and they think he's been a great leader, and that's exciting. Don't get me wrong, and obviously, a change of scenery can be amazing for footballers. We've seen it so many times, but I'll believe it when I see it. Put it that way. But look, I'm excited. There's a lot of Bunty is an absolute worst. He's a wonderful defender. Like everybody, remembers him off the back fence and carting it off, and his hair and wet flying everywhere. But his real value lies in his defensive movements and his communication, and that is
Mm.
something we absolutely need in the middle, and hopefully that plus this renewed attitude and improved conditioning means that we do get a really strong first grade quality middle. So who knows, mate? Cautiously optimistic. I would say, and as other people have pointed out, like we've got like a Warriors reserve grader that's apparently leading all the fitness drills. I don't
Mm.
know.
But as I just pointed out, the Warriors New South Wales Cup side last year were pretty good, so it might not be that big of a problem. The I want to just mention in the pregame last week, Benji Marshall made a few comments, and I think a little bit of it was taken out of context. One of the comments that he made was that he thought he was like I'm pretty sure Adam Dewey's going to play 7 in round 2. And then everyone was like, "Oh, why would he say that? Why would he say Adam Dewey's going to play 7 in round 2?" He didn't. He specifically said, "I'm pretty sure," which actually means the opposite. It means that he hasn't made his mind up. So it means Jock Madden is absolutely in the frame, especially because he, in the same breath, mentioned Latu Fanu's out. So if he's not absolutely sure of Adam Dewey, then he's still got in the back of his mind that maybe he does go with Jock Madden. Like I actually think Benji Marshall and then Jock came out and performed the way he did. Now he's named at 14, and as Jock was coming off the field, Benji Marshall was clapping him. So like you know me, I kind of have a little bit of like a one mind thing going on with Benji Marshall. I would not be surprised in the slightest. If not named at 7, I wouldn't be surprised if you see like something a little bit out of the box where, you mentioned before, like maybe Adam Dewey can do that Heath Mason job, but instead of coming on off the bench, maybe Jock Madden comes on at 7 and Adam Dewey drops into that role. I wouldn't actually be surprised in the slightest if Benji Marshall plays that card. The other thing, what was the other thing? There was another thing that he mentioned. Oh, he singled out Kai Pierce Paul as being able to bring a lot of defensive strength to an area where we were fragile. He very specifically was conscious of the fact that our right edge defense was one of our biggest weaknesses last year. Bunty Afoa also plugs another one. We mentioned many times that I did a whole bloody data dive in how we had one of, if not the most weak middle defensive in terms of like tackle efficiency. Bunty Afoa really solidifies that. Alex 12, Bunty Afoa. I know Bole is a little bit of kind of a problem in that, but if you get Terrell May in there instead of Fonua, you've got a very good defensive middle there holding that down, and now you've also got defensively, you've shored up that right edge. This side might actually be like at full strength. It might be really hard to actually score on, like because it really was constantly the same issue over and over again, and we have gone low cost solutions. Kaipius Paul's not a low cost solution, but Bunty's a low cost solution. We've got low cost solutions for fixing those issues, and I think it might be might be a little bit under the radar, the actual like value that it brings. So one to look out for. I wouldn't be surprised if Bunty Afo being picked at 8 is actually where he ends up in round 2. I wouldn't be surprised if you see Terrell May come in and Volley play off the bench.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And that would suit Fanua a little bit better, especially with what we saw towards the back end of last year. Would I be confident if early season 2025 Fanua Bole turned up these next few weeks? Yeah, I would be. But with the way he ended the season, I wasn't exactly sure. So, you might be onto something. I guess we're going to find out. I found it pretty interesting that Benji said that they're just managing Terrell's load in a lot of ways. He's got a back complaint, and that's the main reason that he's out. But he played so many minutes last year that they're being really conscious of, when to inject him and when not to. So it obviously speaks to the fact that Benji's going to lean in on his middle forwards a little bit more, which I'm glad to hear. But in terms of the positional battles and those things that we think are up for grabs, I think that he and Marcy, very, very similarly to he who must not be named, Lachlan Galvin, in 2024, it's a very, very eerily similar situation in the sense of the main guy got injured and then, from there got a starting jersey and never looked back. And I anticipate that it will be the exact same thing with Hiamasi here over Jarrell Skelton, which is disappointing for Jarrell, but I just think, yeah, I think Marcy runs away with that jersey. I think that the middle forwards are pretty much sorted. I think that Royce will round out the bench. You never know. And then obviously, sort of jerseys 19 and 20 or 18 and 19, whatever it is. I think Jock Madden gets one of them. And then the other one will be down to injuries in terms of it'd ideally be a Jarrell Skelton, but we'll see. But in terms of those guys that I am most keen to see, Taylor May, I've heard he's been shooting the lights out all preseason. Adam Dewey, whether or not he can emulate those sort of tempo changes and, squaring up with his hips and throwing the ball with high elbows across his body. I'm interested to see whether or not he can do that. Obviously, I think Benji really tries to coach that into them. So I'll be interested to see that. And Kai Pearce-Paul as well. As you mentioned, they're the big watchers for me. Is there anything else on this tip sheet of yours that you're sort of looking at?
Just before I look at that, just on one of your comments there, like the more I think about it, you've called it. Like you said that you think Jock Madden can run these shapes better than Dewey. Like you said that. I
Yeah, I do.
I agree. I agree. And I think this weekend, I think we're gonna see it. Because if you really think about it, like we know Adam Dewey. We've seen him play a lot. Like you know his tendencies, you know his habits. He's a run first player. Jock Madden is a pass first player, right? So like when squaring up, Dewey's going to dummy more than Jock. Jock's going to pass more than dummy. And I think
Yep.
that that's going to play. I think that that's going to play against our strengths when we have somebody like Taylor May, who you need to give the ball to. Not giving the ball to the sweeping man Buller or the sweeping man Luai or just directly to Talon or even throwing a cutout all the way to the wing to Marcy. That's Jock will do that. Adam will not. And like I think that alone should be enough of an indicator, notwithstanding the fact that, and we didn't even talk about this, Jock Madden's kicking game on the weekend was
Mm,
first rate. He found the
yep.
grass almost every time he kicked it. He had a big boot, and it actually reminded me like of something that I'd almost forgotten about Jock Madden, like when he was back with us earlier in his career. In those weeks where he came in and he played and Luke Brooks didn't play, I remember seeing it. It was like Luke Brooks was like never taking kicks on the fourth. He was never thinking about winning the field position battle. Jock does. Jock actually goes, I have an opportunity to kick early here because the winger's out of position, and he finds the grass. And that is so important in the modern game. So I'm actually, like, hopeful, to be honest. I'm not sure yet, but I'm hopeful that that is actually what Benji Marshall ends up seeing. Aside from that, I'm thinking like, I know you mentioned he's a training trialist, but I'm thinking Jack Adder might actually, I don't know, maybe he actually does have a development deal and they just haven't announced it or something like that, but, like, the way that they're, like, the way that he got picked ahead of Mason at fullback last week straight away, and now he's, like, on the four-man, this weekend is really got me thinking that he might actually be, and it makes sense because, Buller going down is probably the one, player in the top 13 that if, he got injured in a game, it'd kind of break everything, like, if you think about it, like, and you don't want Heath Mason coming on and having to play fullback. You don't want to have to shuffle Sunia Taruva into fullback and do a bit of a shiffle shuffle. So to my point before, like, with being able to, like, visualize Jack Huttard being able to actually be a little bit of a utility type, I wouldn't be surprised if Jack Huttard ends up being in the round two side either.
Yeah, that'd be fascinating. I'd need to see a little bit more from him physically. I think that he fell off a few tackles last week. Penrith at full strength will let him know about it. But yeah, look, he's played six before, plenty of times through the junior reps, and I think that he could certainly do a job on the wing and push, someone one in hypothetically. So look, I wouldn't be against it. It's just a question of
Would you rather have Jack Huttard in the 19 jersey or Heath Mason in round two?
assuming that yeah. Look, I
Assuming
would.
that you can pick him, assuming that you can pick Jack Huttard, who would you pick?
Then I Yeah, I would. I'd pick Jack. I think that, even off his kick returns, he looked really exciting. I thought that he showed a lot of he showed a lot of class with his movements in attack as well. I thought in good ball territory. So yeah, that'd be my pick. But yeah, it's intriguing with these six-man benches, bro. You were just really gonna have to see. And, even a guy like Sione Fainu, where, we thought for a little while that Seafath wrongly will get the jump on him. There's a lot to ponder in terms of now there's a couple extra jerseys now up for grabs, so we're just gonna have to see. But in terms of predictions and stuff and how this is gonna go, look, don't panic. Again, it's like last week. If we're down by a couple of tries, don't panic because again, like where they're at with their conditioning block is completely different to ours. There's still some things that we're working through. Penrith have been a tried and true system for the last 6 years. It'll be okay regardless. As long as effort areas are up and, things look reasonably cohesive and they're getting to their points on the field, I'm okay. I'm all right with it.
You reckon we're gonna see another Tino highlight reel?
Wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me.
Wouldn't
And I'll
surprise
be
me either. You know,
very happy.
the one thing that they didn't do once last week was put a crossfield kick to him. Like
That's
the NRL proletariat have yet to see Tino really. Like they've seen like sideways do the splits Tino, but they haven't seen air Tino yet. That
no, they
that
haven't.
man under that man under a crossfield kick can do things nobody can do. So, shout outs to Tino. I actually after the after the game, I sent him a message on Instagram. I said, "Thanks for making me look smart," and he replies like, "Thanks, bro." So, shout outs to him. It's so exciting, man, to actually watch these guys come through and get a chance. I reckon he's going to play first grade this year. I honestly do.
Yeah. I after seeing that and obviously another performance this week and then seeing how he goes in cup for a few weeks, I tend to agree. I think that he'll get there. But you made mention of, seeing a lot of these young guys coming through now and being under the bright lights and playing against first grade as well. There's a few of them, in these lower grades that are worth talking about. And, it gives me an opportunity to now talk about pathways. Balmain had the Byron Harold Matson SG ball, so obviously can't really talk about them, but they are playing against Parramatta in both grades,
Ooh.
which will be a very, very big test for these boys. Very big
Mm.
test. Looks like Asatasi's shuffled his pack a little bit. Zane Farmer-Kay's gone to the bench, and Huma Fotu will go to jersey 10. For Blake Van Drie's still at lock, and it looks like the back line of Kanan, Carnib, Vivau, Bustani, Huahulu, Isdale, and Azzy still remain. So very, very excited to see how they go against a very heavily fancied Parramatta. But thankfully, by the looks of things, Cameron Bamblett is out. So that's a, oh no, he's playing 5/8. Ignore me. That's not good.
That's
Uh,
worse.
that's right. And
He's going to have his hands on the ball 94 times.
that's right. And then over for Harold Mats, Ariane and Marcus Cesaro, Noel Valtangi and Co. are coming up against Parramatta, who played West round one. And that Lorimer CU continues to just give nightmares to his opposites. So very tough test for whoever Balmain's right centre is this weekend. West Magpies, both grades went down 24-12 to the Newcastle Knights. SG ball first. It was 5-0 to Newcastle up until the 60th minute. Extremely disappointing from my perspective, but also something that I wasn't particularly. It wasn't unexpected from my perspective. It just hurt. There was a bit of a late shuffle. Josh Vella went to the back, and Aiden Richards went from centre to wing, and Lele came into the centres. Boston Lauval just got promoted. But yeah, just didn't really help him. It was a difficult game for these boys, and never really got started. A couple of tries at the end when Newcastle put the cue in the rack. But the positive is that the pack has been shuffled in a good way this week. Aaron Payer goes to the back. Glassy comes in at right centre. James Lanyon is starting. He's making his SG ball debut. Christian Torpau-Moores is back. Phoenix Godney's back. Siatame Have is back. So it's a good side named by Nathan Lakeman. It's just that you have to deal with guys like Dane Jennings, Dean Tower, like who are probably the best centre pairing in the comp in SG ball. Both of them are very, very good. But it looks like Taj Alvarez, where is he? Taj Alvarez is out. So that's a help for those boys. But mate, you've probably seen bits and pieces. It's been disappointing so far from West, but looking at it from the bright side, guys like Glassy, Lanyon, these sorts of guys, obviously Christian, Phoenix, Siatame all back. Is that enough to sort of jag a result?
I I wouldn't say jag. I think that the Magpies are going to win this game. I That's a bloody good side. I think that they've made the right changes. Your man, your draft pick, Glassy goes straight in. Now I'm regretting not actually taking James, like because I was a little bit on the fence because they weren't picking him. Oh yeah, now they picked him. Thanks so much. I wish I knew. I would have picked him in my draft, but no, I think they're going to get the job done this week. That's a good side. It's especially good in the forwards. Like I feel that forward pack coming back from like that test, it's going to be like Goku training in the hyperbaric chamber, like coming back to SG ball after that for Christian and Siatame and Phoenix. They're gonna run rampant, and off the back of that, I wouldn't be surprised if James Lanyon scores a double. He scores tries for fun from anywhere on the field. I don't know what he was doing in MacArthur West Tigers. Like he is absolute top draw talent, James Lanyon. Yeah, I'm tipping the Magpies. I think the Tigers are going to get their pants pulled down in a big way this weekend, though.
Yeah, it is unfortunate, but I do tend to agree. Harold Matthews, they went down to before 12 as well, as I mentioned earlier. There was a few more positives, I will say that. The try that Sam Francis scored on that right edge was excellent. Really nice solo touches. I like the look of Noah Arneal, the 17, who came in at 5/8 late for Tarawi Goblin Lions. I thought he had some really nice touches. Isaac Isdale, Josh Ratu did some good things as well, but ultimately it was pretty disappointing. Newcastle scored a couple of early tries. The game went to and fro, a few errors and whatnot from either side. Sam had that wonderful moment, and it was 8-6 at that point, but we just weren't good enough there. They've shuffled their deck a little bit. Monson looks like he's moved to the other side, as have Sam and Kingston Finau. So might be looking for a response there. I thought Zephania Finau was excellent again. I think we've got pretty big raps on him. He's been excellent to start this year in what's been a pretty testing year for that Harold Matt side. But it's now or never for those boys in terms of making a run for the playoffs. I know that sounds ridiculous that it's round 3, but it's a very short season, so work to be done. Laurie Daly Cup and Andrew Johns Cup, both victorious. James Lanyard obviously had a wonderful runaway try again, but he'll be promoted this week. But yeah, the usual blokes had a really good week. Your Ruben Togas, your Brock A. Churches, Ashton Chansell led really well as the captain in the front row. Kai Penfold at lock, he's excellent. So those boys are doing really well, actually. Let me get their ladder position. AJ Carr. I can't. It's not it. I can't find it on New South Wales. Anyway,
I reckon they're favourites to win the comp, personally.
yeah, they're doing very well. And then as are at the Andrew Johns Cup. Sorry, I was talking about Laurie Daly Cup before. Andrew Johns Cup are doing very, very well as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
there's
think
a
they're favourites to win the comp in both grades. I honestly do.
yeah, I'm
I
with
mean,
you.
we're always a good side in that comp. Always a good side. Like, I think several years in a row we've made the finals in both comps and like semis, if not GF. Like, I think like this year they're both gonna be there when the whips are cracking. Just one quickly. Couple of things I've noticed. I think there's a chance this might be the SG Ball debut of one Aiden Richards. He's named at 18 in the Magpies SG Ball side, son of Pat.
He actually played
Yep.
last week. He played last week
Oh,
as a late inclusion.
well, there you go. Fuck me. Ex Magpie Madux Fui lines up against us as well. He's a big unit. I think that in that Harold Matt side, him and Christian Tapau Moores were like, 1A, 1B middles, and they're going to be lining up against each other. So I would not be surprised if we see a sin bin for both of them at some point in this game.
Would not surprise me either, mate. Those two smashing heads together, that would not surprise me at all. But I actually want to call one out just really quickly. 28th of Feb at Kirkham Oval in Camden, every single Tigers pathway grade is playing. So not only are Western Balmain playing one another in Mats and Ball, but you've got Andrew Johns Cup and Laura Daly Cup. And then I think Tasha Gale might even be there. No, they're not. They've got the
What
ball.
what date?
It's the 28th of Feb, so Saturday week.
Wow,
So
damn.
yeah, so obviously that's the week of the Vegas games. If you want some pathways footy and you want to have a little bit of a better understanding of the blokes that we talk about every single week, it's probably the time. So one for your little black book for those of you in Sydney or those abroad who feel like making a trip. I'll certainly be there, but we'll talk about that later. Mate, I think we're done. Anything else?
Nah, let's go. I'm hungry.
All right, beautiful.
I got off the plane and got straight on the potty. I'm tired. I'm worn out. I got off the plane and I immediately felt overwhelmed by the searing heat of this goddamn city, Brisbane. Sydney, you guys, I don't want to hear any complaints about your weather. Like, I know everyone was, oh, it's so hot, mate. Turn it up. I was down there for 2 days and it was paradise compared to up here. It's devastating weather up here at the moment.
I hear you. Oh, quick one, actually. We wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't. Shout out to Matt Utah. I hope he's doing all right. I hear that he's
Oh yeah.
in a stable condition, but obviously getting shot twice. He's a tough bugger for them to have found him conscious and still breathing. So he's
He is a
he's
tough bugger. He's one of the toughest players that's ever played the bloody game. He's like 4'3", and he used to run at forwards and knock them on their ass. So I'm backing him in. Yeah, I'm backing Matt Utah in. He'll come back. I'm sure. Let's go, Matt.
That's it. Good luck to all West Tigers affiliated players and teams this weekend. Hopefully, we are reviewing a few more wins. That would be very nice, particularly in the pathways grades. We're actually going to leave you with the sounds of our mate AJ, who has written the open and closing theme strangers to this podcast. One of his many projects has released an album. They are called Punch a Koala. It is called Adult Situations. It involves AJ and Justin. They're a two-piece. Obviously, they all play different
The white
instruments.
stripes.
Sorry?
It's the white stripes.
It is a little bit white stripesy, but I think there's a few more parts which you'll hear. Guys, this is a song called Dad Tan. You can get it anywhere that you listen to your music. This has been West Tigers Faithful. Thank you for your time. We will leave you now with Punja Koala.
I hit the beach, yeah, the sun was calling. I laid out flat, more like a walrus. Then I fell asleep, and now I'm feeling dumb. Now parts of me are burning, others feeling numb. Wishing I wore sunscreen. Socks on at the beach, such a bad decision. Now my ankles have a clear division. Took off my shades to check myself. No amount of Allah was going to help. Wishing I wore sunscreen. Now half my skin's glowing. I got these dad tan lines. I'm a two-tone wreck. I'm half pasty white and half Ferrari red. My shirt is off, but I look like I'm wearing one. My crispy outline shows what I've overdone. My mom said wear SPF or you will regret it. I'd like to live my life, but now I look pathetic. My skin peeling off like a bad sticker. But my farmer's tan just keeps getting sicker. Wishing I wore sunscreen. Now half my skin's glowing. I got these dad tan